this was a good week of chapters, with everything seemingly starting to escalate as many of the arcs are starting to heat up once again, as a lot of these battles that have been brewing are starting to reach their climax, with a lot of other things starting to build. So we'll be starting off with One Piece, chapter 1061, and this was a good chapter showing the Straw Hats arriving at, I think it was Egghead Island, or something like that, the island of Dr. Vegapunk, and this futuristic land that's so scientifically advanced that it's 500 years ahead of where they currently are, and given this is pirating and so on, that basically puts it a century or so ahead of us, theoretically. So that was interesting, seeing that the Straw Hats are once again separated, with Jinbei, Bonnie, Chopper, and Luffy being off on their own adventure at this point, and the rest of the Straw Hats having just barely saved their ship from the metal shark that was chasing after Bonnie, being saved by a giant robot, only to be revealed that it was Dr. Vegapunk inside, and her telling them that they're not saved, that they're more or less captured. So at this point we have those two things going on here with Dr. Vegapunk's island. The reveal was pretty good, getting to meet a character we've only heard about in passing for many chapters, many years at this point. And so there's a lot of questions about Dr. Vegapunk, whether it's the person we meet in this chapter is either the real Vegapunk, a clone, a relative, something. It doesn't really matter until we find out what it is, which I imagine we'll find out sooner or later. But for now, the reveal was rather fun, and seeing that she is running this place and is so technologically advanced that she can keep making real creatures out of metal, but then lamenting the fact that they don't follow the order she wants, is rather funny, as she wants the shark to do a simple task, but instead the shark is doing shark things, meaning it's too advanced, and she wants to dumb it down, which I think is rather funny. It'll also be very interesting to see how Frankie handles this new development, as this is kind of his arc now, seeing as how he'll have to go quote-unquote toe-to-toe with Vegapunk in terms of making different types of machines. So that should be pretty fun. He'll probably have some level of focal point in this arc. We get to see the Bonnie group with Luffy, Chopper, and Jinbei, as I said, drying off, being able to get away from the shark thanks to Jinbei. We find that Bonnie's crew is gone. She came here alone because she has a bone to pick with Dr. Vegapunk. This probably is about Kuma more than anything, but we'll have to find out what that is. She states that she's enemies with Luffy, but yet is probably the nicest of the worst generation that's met Luffy thus far. So it'll be very fun to see how their companionship continues to grow, as I guess their rivalry does too, and we'll see what happens with her in this arc. The last thing is we also get to see that Helmeppo is begging a member of the Marines, a Marine headquarters that's close to Vegapunk's island, begging to have them help go get Kobe. Even Helmeppo stating, can't they get the Seraphim to help storm Pirate Island? And the commander says no, pretty much. We get to see Tashigi still there taking care of the children thanks to Vegapunk's medicine and so on. So there's a lot of intriguing things. This arc will continue to get more and more interesting as time goes on. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter an A. It was pretty great seeing the reveal of Vegapunk, as well as the fact that we're getting this new arc right here that was very new. I don't think anyone predicted this is where we were going to go after Wano, going from old school Japan to now futuristic sci-fi, which is actually rather fun. So I think this is a fresh new arc and shows there's still quite a bit of life left to One Piece, as we still have to get to Elbaf, one would imagine. So it looks like we've got a couple more arcs. Will it be as long as Wano? Probably not, but you never know how long this will be. I would think this is probably going to be closer to Zoe than Dressrosa, but it'll probably be somewhere in between. This arc itself could be very interesting, with Vegapunk capturing the rest of the Straw Hats, and it'll be up to Luffy and Bonnie, their group, to rescue them as well as take down Vegapunk, in a manner of speaking, while dealing with all sorts of futuristic nonsense that'll be here. So the coming chapters should be pretty fun, though we have to wait a little while longer because it looks like One Piece will be on break next week. So we'll have to wait and see, but the future for this particular arc looks extremely exciting. So now we're on to Mission Yozakura Family, chapter 148, and this was a good chapter showing the beginning of the mission to get back Futaba and Shinzo, as they were able to locate the ship that Momo has them on, and they begin to infiltrate the ship and try to get them back. Momo is more or less alert to their presence, and the fighting begins as we find out that the ship that Momo built here, his battleship, is actually one giant little brother, or many of them, I guess, because it can regenerate. So the way that the Yozakura family members that are not on Momo's side are able to break in is through the eldest brother being able to stop Futaba's martial arts that brought up a giant water spout, which then caused damage to the ship and allowed them to infiltrate the ship. So the next few chapters should be pretty interesting, seeing that the battle is underway as other A-ranked members also infiltrate from the upper deck. So things will be very interesting to see how Momo's able to navigate this, because I'm assuming he's going to win here because no one's going to get killed. That's the probably most interesting part about this, and it allows some more tension on how this fight is going to play out. So I'm curious to see which family member is corrupted next, as we have all the men going into the ship with the main female character and Shion staying on the helicopter watching from above. So I wonder how he's going to take her, either one of them, if he does so, or if he just takes some of the sons. So it'll be interesting. The battle should be fun to see who gets taken or if they even win. Maybe take back Shinzo, maybe, or Futaba, and then have to find a way to unbreak the mind control before Momo takes the advantage again by taking another couple of family members or something. The routes this story can take are very intriguing, as there are so many that are open to it that aren't wrong. So it should be fun to see what lane this decides to navigate into, and I look forward to seeing what decision is made. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing the battle begin, see that even the A-ranked spies have gotten involved, and to see that things are probably going to be a little tougher for Momo than ever before, but I somehow believe he'll probably get out with a family member or two, so he continue to grow his army, leading to a, once again, clash between A-ranked spies and the Yozakura family members, though this time I do believe that also the main female lead might also end up getting corrupted by Momo, which would be a very interesting thing to have happen, which I actually haven't thought about before, but seeing as how she's there, it's a possibility that could happen. So a lot of fun on the horizon. So now we're on to Undead Unluck, chapter 128, and this was a good chapter showing the continued battle between the sun and the rest of the Union. We also see that Luna does have a giant screen to show what's going on the outside, as she says that Juiz always liked to watch to know what was going on, not necessarily because she wanted to, but she needed to see it to know how to eventually win, type of thing. So Fuko will know what's happening, which I think is an interesting bit, as Luna does want to continue to discuss, but sees that Fuko is too engrossed in what's going on, so she decides to watch again. We get to continue to learn that Luna believed in the people, and that's why she created the artifacts, where the sun believed in the rules and thus created the Umas. That's what the great game is between the two of them, to see which one of their backed peoples will win. So we go back to the fight between the Union and even Under versing the Sun. So we see Juiz and Andy trying to tactfully retreat to save Chikara, but they can't do anything for him and they have to try to delay him as much as possible. They thank Chikara for being able to delay him even for the brief moment that he did, as many of the others begin to attack. Because of that stoppage for just a moment allowed enough time for most of the other members of the Under as well as the Union to arrive to begin another assault on the Sun, which was that Bunny and another guy we hadn't met yet, who we find out is Unburn, begin to coat the sun in Bunny's odd material that she's sort of made out of. I believe she was Unback, but I'm not quite sure what her power is. But for now, she's seemingly able to seal up the sun, though it takes a lot to do so. We then see that Undecrease is charging up this super railgun that takes all the electricity of the earth and shoots it out at a target, and because he can continue to shoot this shot as many times as he wants because he's on decrease. So we see that he's ready, and Juiz tells him the specifics of what the weapon is so that he knows exactly what to do to make sure it doesn't decrease. So he's charging up the weapon. As the old samurai woman, we find out what she is, which is she's unsomething. She's able to lock his foot into the ground because he can't draw it out. Undraw out, something like that. So he's stuck in the ground, and he eventually eats the railgun shot, thanks to Andy pulling in the unlock from Fuko to make sure the blast is aimed at the sun. We see that the sun, in his overwhelming power, was able to withstand the shot from the railgun that nearly incinerated Andy, and because it's the sun and it's so hot, it ended up harming Bunny in a way that no one else had done so before. Once she's coated something, they're usually sealed away, but because of the heat, Bunny ends up getting hurt from locking up the sun and having to release it so that she is unharmed. The sun then decides that if he can't pull its foot out of the ground, just to take the ground with it, and yanks up a giant chunk of the ground. So they threw everything at the sun, and none of it even so much as phased it. All it did was stop it for literally a moment, maybe 30 seconds. That's when Andy allows Victor to come out, as they seemingly are able to switch spots from time to time now. And so Victor comes out, and it's looking like Victor and Juiz are going to fight side by side to try to delay the sun. So that was the chapter. It was very good. Overall, I think I'll give this chapter an A. It was great to see this fighting. It was very good seeing the back and forth, as much as the sun is just too imposing and there's nothing really any of them can do. It does paint the picture of how are they going to stop the sun in the next / last cycle, because so far they're throwing everything at this thing and nothing's working at all. So it makes it even more interesting to see how are they going to win. Seeing this overpowering menace just be unstoppable is very interesting. Seeing its overpowering might. So there are a couple of things that are very interesting about this. Seeing this battle continue, and it looks like we're going to watch them basically lose, as the sun will most likely make it to the round table with like 3 seconds left before Fuko gets away, just as it looks like they're about to lose. That's probably what's going to happen. But we'll be able to see just how powerful and imposing the sun is, as the two of them have this presence despite being very simple designs. They're interesting quote-unquote god characters that really show this otherworldly, like, super powerfulness to them and adds this uncontrollable nature to the story. So it'll be interesting to see how Fuko is able to amass enough weapons, quote-unquote, and power to stop the sun, as it seems already nothing can stop the sun. So the chapter was great in showing that huge power dynamic, as well as showing that this is probably Juiz's best shot and it's not looking very good. So we also get to see Juiz and Victor fight side by side, so that should be fun in the next chapter. The next few chapters should be very interesting to see how they work this out. Now we're on to Mashle, Magic and Muscles, chapter 125, and this was a good chapter showing a bit more of Order's backstory, seeing as he went to a different school, a policing academy it seems, met a friend who put up with his loner attitude and eventually died trying to save people. Order didn't quite understand the inefficient means of what he was doing, but after getting to know him, it would seem, and after his death and one final promise, it seems as he's taken that to heart, and he ends up beating the clown because of it. Not really because of it, but because he has the rules he's going to follow and to use everything in his arsenal to pull it off. The clown is able to pull off some impressive feats by completely erasing his presence and attacks Order for most of this fight until we get to the flashback, where then Order kind of creates sand everywhere, trapping the clown and drowning him in sand, Will this actually kill him? Probably not, but at least the way this chapter is situated, he's done for now. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a second fight with all of Innocent Zero's children, or if they're all done, but this fight has another round to it, or even that order is that much more powerful than the others. Because so far they've all survived, where it makes you wonder why the other Divine Visionaries didn't win. I guess it was more or less to show power, but it's still shocking how easily Order was able to win this fight. Maybe he's just trying to push to the end. Who knows? But overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing some more context for Order, some more good battling between the two of them, and ultimately a conclusion, at least seemingly right now, to this battle. All that's left is Doom and his Divine Visionary before all of them more or less move on to Innocent Zero, and that's where things are probably going to cause a little bit more of an issue, as I don't think any of them are going to be able to defeat Innocent Zero. So the next few chapters should be pretty fun to see what direction they decide to go in. So now we're on to Sakamoto Days chapter 88, and this was a good chapter showing that Sakamoto was not able to stop the kid from breaking the emergency system because of the Deerhead guy calling upon another one of the henchmen of Slur, the masochist guy, Candy Jam or something like that, who was able to hypnotize the kid into breaking it before they were able to reboot it back online. But those few seconds were enough for what I believe the hypnosis guy, the Candy Jam, and the director to arrive on the islands. It is then shown that Shin and the others arrive to tell Sakamoto what the database is, which is the janitor, and that's when the kid realizes what he had done, and that now that Slur and his men are basically there to kill everyone because they're not gonna not hurt people, as he was able to find out through the Deerhead guy, who basically just brushed him off after more or less confirming that he's not going to uphold his promise of not killing anyone. Now they know that the mission for Slur's men is to go after the janitor, so now it's up to Shin, Akira, the invisible guy, Sakamoto, and presumably the kid to go after and save the janitor. It'll be interesting who else infiltrated, as we know the director did, as we see him trying to film footage of students in a classroom for his student film, I guess, about students, when the teacher seemingly doesn't notice him, and once he seemingly starts to, or tries to discipline the director kills him. The students try to run away, but the director tells them all to keep still so he can film, and he'll be the teacher before other teachers arrive to try to stop the director. They get killed in the process. And when we see the older woman teacher that Shin and crew have been fighting seemingly find him, and now we'll get to see the two of them fight. So that should be extremely fun to see how strong she is compared to a person we know is very strong. And now the race for the database now gets even more tense, because as soon as Slur's men find out that it's the janitor, things are going to go from bad to worse. I don't think the janitor has any real skills, but you never know. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing that we're now heading to the home stretch for this arc, as now that Slur's men have arrived, as well as Sakamoto learning what the database is. Things should get very interesting, as the kid now won't be joining Slur because A, the JCC is about to be attacked in mass by crazy individuals, that the people that he cares about are going to be harmed, and now his grandfather's in trouble because of him by accident. So now we have a big fight on our hands with the Sakamoto's crew probably going to have to go one-on-one with a couple of these Slur men, if not even their whole group on one person, whatever. There's a lot of intrigue going on with a lot of these fights, so it should be pretty fun to see what direction these fights go and how they're able to save or not save the janitor. That's the biggest question, as well as seeing if the janitor's son, the father of the kid with Sakamoto right now, if he arrives to really really mess things up here also. So there's a lot of intriguing things going on here, and we'll see how all of this pans out after the fighting is done. But the next few chapters should be pretty good, as it's a race to save the database. So that was all of the chapters. They were all very good, with One Piece having it that we got to meet Vegapunk for the first time, as well as the new story beginning, with Mission Yozakura family having their mission beginning, having Undead Unluck having the fight against the sun continue to escalate and get even more intense, Mashle having the end of the Order and the Clown fight, and Sakamoto having the beginning of the end of the arc, as the race for the database is now on in earnest, as now Slur's crew has infiltrated. So now for everything else, My Hero was fine, Jujutsu Kaisen was fine. I think this series will probably be better to watch as an anime or read in bulk. I think the week-to-week experience is a little lackluster, for me in particular. Blue Box was fine. The Elusive Samurai was good, as the main hero and the main villain of this arc, the main enemy general, are now at an impasse, as the main hero is putting all his trust in his more or less bodyguard to win the fight against the main general here. So that should be pretty fun to see how that shakes out, as well as the other fights are still getting very much more interesting. So the whole battle here is very fun. P times 6 was good, as we get to see that Lucky is still battling back and forth on what he should do, as his friend slash tutor more or less is seemingly more inclined to let real Lucky survive, if that makes sense, pushing him that way, where the brother seemingly wants him to go back to natural talent Lucky. So it should be pretty interesting to see who wins and what Lucky does. Super Smartphone was good, as we got to see a bit more of the backstory for the main villain. It was good in its own right, just to see how his situation is and see that he's got his own real motivations for what he's doing. So it should be pretty interesting to see what he does next, and we get to see that one of his henchmen, the main one I guess, has found the main character and his real identity. So it should be pretty interesting how the main character is going to have to adapt from here. Aliens Area was good. It showed that the other leaders of the other squads have all agreed after some more weighty debate, as we find out what actually happened to the main character and how he got his alien implants. So it should be interesting to see how this story continues to go, as we're now heading into a big arc ahead. And Ginka and Luna was good, as it's continuously giving me more fairy tale vibes, as the grand adventure just continues for the two of them. So it should be fun to see how far this series goes. So that was everything. It was a great week of chapters overall, and so next week we might not have One Piece, but we'll have Black Clover back, so it should be another good week next week. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and as always, thank you for watching.